Okay, so this is the book launch, official book launch of my second book, What's Next on Post Awakening Practice. And I have a couple of things prepared, few notes that I would like to mention during this session. But as I have the habit of first meditating and last meditating, I would suggest that we first spend a few minutes, just about 3-4 minutes, just sitting silently. And I will also ask a blessing from Guru Rinpoche during this short meditation in the beginning. I think we will also have another, like a little bit longer, maybe 10 minutes meditation in the end, and finish with basic prayers. But now you can take a comfortable posture. You can have your eyes open or closed, however you like. Spine upright. I'm sure you all know about the basics of meditation, sitting meditation, and we're not going to do anything fancy, just simply being, just feeling your body, letting the different areas of the body relax, release, and just being present without trying anything. Letting the body relax into this open inner space, mind space, basic space of awareness. Like enjoying a nice warm bath or sunshine on a summer beach. Just enjoying and knowing this enjoyment. Being present, clear, not foggy, not drifting into thoughts or getting distracted by thoughts. Simply being present. You can let the breathing move on its own. Important to let the breathing muscles in the chest, in the lungs area, in the belly, to allow them to release, relax thoroughly. And also letting all energies of the mind, thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, let them flow freely. With love and sincerity, I would like to ask a blessing from Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal to all of us joining this session for the sake of well-being, happiness and liberation of all sentient beings. Simply feeling the presence, warmth, the blessing, the charge from Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal. It might be new idea to you. Just be open for anything new. Just being receptive. Giving it a moment so that the blessings can seep into the body, giving it a moment, just enjoying it. Noticing the further relaxation in the body and also quieting of the mind and clearing of the mind. Okay, then you can open your eyes and move your body a little bit. All right, so what's next on post-awakening practice? My first book, Awake, was, as the name suggests, about awakening, the first irreversible shift on the path of yoga or dharma practice or spirituality. And this book, and also the first book, it was largely about the so-called two-part formula, 2PF, which is a technique that we use in Open Heart for generating this first insight, this first awakening. And the second book, What's Next, is, as the name suggests, about further practice after the first shift, and especially something again that we use in Open Heart, the so-called Open Heart Bhumi model, OHBM. And also I think that the second, like a major topic of this book, is dynamic concentration, that is not widely taught or used in Buddhism, or actually in any other yogic system except Shintoism in Japan. So this book is largely about Open Heart Bhumi model, what it is, what it means, how it can be used in one's own practice, or how it can be used in measuring others' practice. Um, so one thing that I was very happy to include um, in this book are the practitioners' accounts, first-hand accounts by open heart practitioners, 8 of us, who all have gone through the whole arc of Bhumi openings or awakenings um, according to open heart Bhumi model. So I'm sure many of you have read the book to some extent, or maybe some of you has read all of it already. It's been out for 2 days now, and during these 2 days it's been downloaded by about 700 people already, which is kind of a significant number. So I'm sure many of you have already seen some of these stories, first-hand accounts there. I was really happy to include them, and it has taken time to get to this point because I learned open heart Bhumi model from one of my masters, gurus. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago, and we started using it actively in the beginning of 2016 or maybe late 2015 in open heart. So it hasn't been that long time, like a little more than 2.5 years that we've been actively using it. But nevertheless, it has showed that it's a very valid way of mapping one's path, and also I could mention that when it comes to particular stages of insight or awakening, the 11th or opening of the 11th Bhumi, having the 11th major insight is a very significant point in one's yogic Dharma practice, because it makes the natural state one's default mode, and that is very significant. I've written about open heart Bhumi model. I tried to include all the questions and things that people have asked me about it through the last 2 or 3 years in this book. I tried to answer really in enough detail so that the readers and of course open heart practitioners also have like a as thorough view of it and understanding of it as possible. So I've written about giving the basic introduction to what it is, what it means, and also instructions to visiting Bhumis, how to visit Bhumis. I've included a part of how to open Bhumis, especially in relation to dynamic concentration, and so on. So there's quite a lot of material about open heart Bhumi model in this book. And as I said, the first-hand accounts of practitioners, it's kind of, I feel that it's kind of like the whipped cream on top of a cake, because it really, makes the explanation, otherwise theoretic explanation of OHBM, kind of makes it alive, so that the book includes first-hand accounts of people who've actually gone through it to a large degree. And of course, if we think of having as many awakening experiences, or as they are called, Kensho or Satori or Shinjin or Semgotropa, with various names in various Buddhist traditions, having 11, 12, 13, as many awakenings, it's a rarity as far as I know. So as it can be read from the first-hand accounts, when I was reading them, editing the book, and as my students were sending me these accounts, I was kind of touched reading them, and because it's such a wonderful situation for me as a teacher to be in this position to see how my students, people who use these practices, do these practices, how they mature and how they, as I mentioned, how they become rooted in this natural state, especially when they open the 11th Bhumi, which is the first Mahasiddha Bhumi. So I mentioned it in the book, briefly some statistics from Open Heart Sangha, and at the moment in our group we have 15 or 16 people who have had 11 or more breakthroughs, awakenings, and loads of others who have had less openings, but that's a pretty significant number for a group that has about 70 people in total worldwide. So dynamic concentration. I've given examples in the book. I've explained what dynamic concentration is, and I've given examples based on sutra style Buddhist practice and Tantra style Buddhist practice, how this dynamic concentration could be applied through shouting of mantric syllables, whatever those mantras are. And I think that it's this dynamic concentration where in open heart practice, in people's daily practice, we actually shout the syllables of different mantras, like strongly out loud, sharply we shout these mantras. And I think that this is the biggest, or one of the biggest contributors for our practitioners having so many irreversible shifts in a relatively short span of time. So in our practice, because it is a tantric practice, we shout mantras, but the dynamic concentration could be done, this heightening of concentrative attention could be done also silently, purely on the level of concentration without mantras. But I didn't explain that. I've taught it in courses and retreats, but I didn't put much emphasis on that. But it could be done like purely on the level of mind, should I say that. So as far as I'm aware, and I've discussed with different Buddhist teachers and senior practitioners, asking whether anything like what we do with open heart Bhumi model or dynamic concentration is done in any school of Buddhism, and the answer I received was that no, it doesn't exist. So I think that this can be the reason why open heart practitioners have insights so fast. And I've also mentioned it in the book that I learned about shouting practice when I was living in Japan before the year 2005, when I was living in a Shinto dojo in a training place in Tokyo. So there we used to do the practice of there was like a certain prayer in Japanese language that we used to shout for about 30 minutes every morning before silent sitting meditation. So that's where I got the idea, basically, like back in 2005. But also something that I've mentioned, or in the way how I explained or how I understand dynamic concentration is also based on a certain Chinese martial art called Yi Chuan, which is often translated as mind boxing or mental boxing, something like this. So Yi Chuan has been, I practiced it on and off since 2003, and that is like a it's this martial art is not about fighting with fists and kicking. It's mostly about using your body for concentration, for creating intention. So that's also one major source that has taught me dynamic concentration. Every once in a while, I've had discussions with some of my students who might be interested in, have a special interest in physical practices like yoga or qigong, tai chi, maybe even some more active martial arts. I've discussed about each one. And of course, martial arts has quite a big part in my personal history since I was a kid. Okay, so if I'm looking at Awake book, my first one, and this one, What's Next, and their content, the two-part formula, open heart Bhumi model, and dynamic concentration, with these practices and teachings, we are kind of getting, not even kind of, we are getting to the core of the underlying principles of all Buddhist or meditative or yogic practices. And I didn't include it in the book, but here's something interesting. Probably some of you who have been around in Open Heart have heard me say this before, but I dug a small quote from my diary, personal diary, from 10 years ago, when one of my gurus, called Babaji, when he told me this quote: "There is no this or that yoga. There is only that which is according to the great tradition of yoga, and that which is outside it. At the moment, much yogic knowledge is scattered around the world. It is your job to bring it all together." Maybe I'll repeat the whole thing. There is no this or that yoga. There is only that which is according to the great tradition of yoga, and that which is outside it. At the moment, much yogic knowledge is scattered around the world. It is your job to bring it all together. So this is from a discussion I had with one of my gurus about 10 years ago, and what I've discussed in Awake book and What's Next, it's all based on these first marching orders, if you will, that I got 10 years ago. So really, this second book also has been in the making for quite a while. It took me only 2.5 weeks to actually write it down and edit it. I got help for it from Helena Albeck, who is our Sangha leader in Finland. She was kind enough to make illustrations that you can find in the beginning of the book, and also Carl Eikrem, our Norwegian Superman who lives in the UK now. Carl gave me a hand in helping with the English grammar. So thank you, Helena and Carl, for that help. So it took me about 2.5 weeks to write it. I guess I had it at the back of my mind for like as a how should I say, like as an idea that was kind of building and growing a little by little for a couple of months. But also the first time open heart practitioners started to enter or open the Mahasiddha Bhumis was in late 2016. So I think November 2016. In November 2016 and December of the same year, many open heart practitioners, myself and a bunch of us, opened Mahasiddha Bhumi sort of in like popcorn, how it cooks in a pot in the same way. So my idea for writing this book has been kind of at the back of my mind since then, because we already knew about 2 years ago that with these practices it's possible to make the natural state one's default mode of being and living. So, but it has taken these 2 years to I wanted to give it some time so that people could kind of taste and feel and live it, so that they would then, when I asked them to give the accounts, they would then be able to write with some kind of ripeness or maturity, having been in that natural state for a while. Yeah. So about 10 years ago, I was asked or told by one of my gurus to get on with it and bring a lot of this yogic knowledge that is scattered around the world together and offer it as a method for people who might be interested and who might have use for it. And I'm glad to have found a bunch of students. Open Heart Sangha is about 70 people now, so I'm glad to have a group of students who are sincere, many of whom have done extensive training in other training methods, including different lineages and systems of Buddhism. So I'm glad that I have a group of dedicated students to work with. So I would like to officially and formally thank my students for as I've mentioned in the foreword also, that they are the ones who are kind of making this hypothesis of open heart a living reality, because we are using techniques and practices, even though they are based on timeless principles, just like all yogic and Dharma teachings are. Our techniques, the two-part formula, I learned it from, I remembered it from a past life a few years ago, so I didn't learn it from any other any living teacher. And also open heart Bhumi model and dynamic concentration combined with the tantric deities that we practice in open heart yoga, it's a new thing. So in a way it's kind of a hypothesis that seeks to prove itself. So thanks to my students who take it seriously and are committed practitioners. Maybe I should also thank Vincent Horn and Daniel Ingram for, Vince and Daniel are like two known figures from the so-called pragmatic Dharma movement that has been growing and established mostly from the United States, since maybe 10, 12 years or so. So thanks to Vince and Daniel for allowing me to include their materials in the book. They are very helpful, looking at what myself I've written. And also something that I was very, very happy. I had already started writing this book when I became aware of Shinzen Young's talk that is in YouTube, where he narrates a story that happened to him some years ago. So in a nutshell, you can find the quote from the book, but in a nutshell the story goes that Shinzen, who is a very seasoned Dharma practitioner and teacher, American man, one of the pioneers of Buddhist meditation and mindfulness in United States, he had visited his student, and at his student's house he had seen a large photo album. In the video you can see him making a gesture like this, so it was like a big photo album. And he said that he started looking at it and was he said that he freaked out watching these photos, because to him, as a mature Dharma practitioner, it was evident what the photos were about. And he says that he thought, to him it was clear that these photos had been taken by the photographer to display through photographic expression the no-self or enlightened state of mind. So Shinzen had told this story in a Dharma talk. You can find the link to the video from the book. And this story that he told is the only one so far that where a Buddhist teacher says that spiritual advancement or attainment or achievement could be or can be seen from a photograph. So if you are familiar with what we do in Open Heart Sangha, this is what we've been doing for myself. I've been doing it since 2013. I started documenting my progress with videos and photos, and this is something that we do in Open Heart Sangha as a standard, so that when practitioners have these shifts or Bhumi openings, awakenings, they take a selfie of themselves or record a short video of 1 or 2 or 3 minutes to document this moment, this event. So I was really extremely happy to have found Shinzen Young's, who is also such a famous teacher, a known teacher, established teacher, find a quote from him because open heart Bumi model and this video filming and photographing that we do has been met with a lot of doubt by the prevailing Buddhist community and practitioners. So I was very, very happy to find this quote because, it's real. So that's why it was wonderful. In my personal files, I have so far 480 photos so far where I've photos of people who have awakened, opened the first Bumi, and then a couple of hundred others of consecutive Bumi openings according to the open heart Bumi model. 480 photos so far. So that would be starting from, I started myself in 2013, early that year, but then it really started in the Sangha in the beginning of 2016. And I started giving guidances to awakening in 2014. So, it hasn't been that long, but many shifts have taken place. Yeah. What else could I say? Let me take a look at the contents if there's something that comes to my mind. Oh yes, so I've also included about 20 photographs in the book, kind of show from a photo that what the change is and what these Bumis are. But having said that, Bumi mapping or Bumi reading is an art, is a skill. Myself, I started in a way do it about 15 years ago when I started to study Zen calligraphy. I was a student of a Japanese master called Terayama Tanchu Sensei, who was probably the foremost specialist on Zen Buddhist calligraphy and Buddhist art in general in Japan. Terayama Sensei, he was very well known throughout Japan, and I was fortunate to study with him for 3 years before he passed away. And so in a nutshell, I've also included this in the book, but Zen calligraphy or Zen art in general, what it means is that what is the difference between ordinary art and Zen art? The difference simply is that somebody who does Zen painting or Zen calligraphy, when the art piece is done, that paint or black ink, it should, when somebody views it, it should transmit the clarity, stability, equanimity of awareness to the viewer. And also it should shine with pure vitality. So the idea of Zen art is that somebody who's had awakenings, kenshos, satoris, and who has practiced meditation, has recognized his natural state, should be able to transmit this natural awareness, the clarity, purity, aliveness of it into the art piece. So Terayama Sensei was a specialist on this kind of art, and I remember the way how he used to teach. We used to spread out these big sheets of white paper, and calligraphy with black ink and like a calligraphy brush is an ancient art in China, Japan, in many other countries in Asia. And so we used to have these big sheets of paper, and in Zen calligraphy we use these big brushes so that the diameter of the brush is very large. So they are like a proper large brushes, and we used to do that different characters, different, or maybe just straight lines or circles or whatever. But then we would hang up these calligraphy works to the wall, and we would let them dry, have lunch in between, and then afterwards gaze at this calligraphic work that we had done. So we would look at them and sense, feel what our own calligraphy, what it tells us, what Sensei's calligraphy tells us, what it transmits us, what kind of factors we can distinguish from the energy that was coming from the calligraphy piece. And also I feel that I was very, very fortunate to be Terayama Sensei's student, because he had a lot of art treasures in his house and in his different training places where he taught. There was calligraphies by the greatest Buddhist masters throughout the centuries, and he would, when we started a practice session at his house, for example, he would maybe we would have like tea before we started practicing, and we would discuss some particular Zen master, for example, and then he didn't say anything when we finished the tea. He would just go into there was this large shelf full of calligraphy scrolls. There was hundreds of them there, and he would go to the shelf and pick up a few different scrolls, and then he would put them up, in this training room, dojo. And there was works by Teshu, Hakuin, really big names of Zen Buddhist and other Buddhist art. So we used to do the same process of viewing the art, sensing it, feeling it, explaining to each other what we felt, what we sensed from that work of art. And of course, even a person with little sensitivity, and I think that I didn't have much sensitivity at that point, about 15 years ago, and I was still new for the art, right? But we were looking at the works of Buddhist meditation masters. So even then, for me, I remember it was easy to see that, okay, there is some significant clarity of mind emanating from this black ink or painting. And also Terayama Sensei would ask like special questions, like suggest something to me that I wasn't able to detect, but he was. Just like I do now with my students when we are Bumi mapping ourselves or other open heart practitioners or practitioners of other schools of Buddhism, I can do the same now. But that's how it started, really, from this really old tradition of Zen art and Zen calligraphy, Zen painting in Japan. And this way of studying art has been around at least 1,000 years. So in this sense, the way how we apply this reading of subtle energy in Open Heart Bhumi model is not anything new. It's just that the way how we apply it is through photos, and of course it can be done in person too, but especially in reference regarding these Bhumi centers inside the head and above the head, and also reading the general energy of the person. And photograph, like a good quality photo, stores files that moment really nicely. So even if we had photos from decades back, we can still tune in into a certain person, certain practitioner, certain master, and feel that state of awareness he or she was experiencing. So that's what we do with Open Heart Bhumi model. In the additional chapter, chapter 3, I also included a few, not that many, but few quotes from different Buddhist figures in reference to Bhumis. And there are Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche's quote, Chigme Lingpa's quote, Zen Master Hakuin's, and so on. So I think that what they have said in their quotes and what I have said about Open Heart Bhumis and what our practitioners have said in their accounts, you can't miss the similarity between the two. Oh, I realized that I've been talking for 50 minutes now. Before we started, I thought that I didn't have that much to say, but well, what can you do? My apologies. So anyway, the book is out now. It's 85 pages. I hope truly that I've been able to express myself in a clear enough manner so that the readers understand what the book talks about. And I hope that I've given some, I've mentioned open heart practice many times, but it should also be evident I put a special effort in expressing Open Heart Bhumi model or dynamic concentration or other factors mentioned there in a way that they could be applied and used and learned by practitioners of all kinds of schools, all kinds of methods. So I hope that these teachings in the book, they bring actual benefit for the readers, whether they are open heart practitioners or practitioners of any other kind of method. I think the instructions should be clear so that anyone can try them out. Okay, so we still have 8 minutes to go. Let's meditate a little bit and then we will finish with basic prayers. take refuge in the Guru, his pure land, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings receive our accumulated merit. I dedicate the merit to the refuge and to all sentient beings. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining this book launch. I hope that you enjoy and reap much benefit from these books. By all means, if you feel that they are beneficial, share them with others. And I'm also happy to, if you want to make a donation for the book, I'm happy to receive it. Thank you. There is a question of are there EPUB or MOBI versions of my books? No, I don't know what that means. Yeah. So thank you very much. If you have some questions or reader comments about the books, would be lovely to read your comments. You can post them to this Facebook group, openheart.fi, or if you are a Sangha member, you can write about them in the Sangha group, or of course you can email me. So thanks again, everyone, and see you when I see you. Cheers. Bye.